I would throw a drone up and I would say, okay, here's how many deer I have in October, and make an assessment about make an assessment. You ever see that? Did you ever see that? What is that? Make an assessment. Do you like me?
Yeah, do you like me? Make an assessment.
Make an assessment. I'm old Greg. That's what it was. Make an assessment. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt.
What can we say, man? Another year back with Hoyt. We're both shooting RX8s. I'm shooting 70 pounds in the bourbon, which I love bourbon.
It's great.
And you're shooting 80 pounds in the straight black.
Blacked out as always, man. I got the, so I'm shooting the 500 grain Easton Arrow this year. And at 80 pounds, I'm flinging that thing at like 300 feet per second. I mean, it's deadly. Put a water buffalo in front of me and he's done.
I mean, we shot it earlier. You literally put an arrow through a brand new target, like never been shot before.
I know. So one other thing that Hoyt is doing this year is they're making all their own strings in-house. And so the quality is top notch, and it just really is something that is setting them apart from their competitors.
Well, what we always try to do when we go to our bow shop, Ultimate Outdoors, is we try to shoot other bows just to make sure that we are really giving everybody a fair chance. Sure. The reality is it's a no-brainer. Hoyt stands above all of them every single time.
Definitely. And so right now you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, for 20% off any apparel on the Hoyt website. And as always,
get serious, get Hoyt. And we're back.
Hey.
HUNTR Podcast, episode 220. As Nick keeps us in line, he's grinding. He's editing.
Grinding
away.
As I'm checking my trail camera pictures.
Yes. You gotta do your part. Yeah. We're back at the studio.
All right, I'm here. Thank you guys for being here. Whether you're listening on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, we appreciate you tuning in. Give us a like, follow, or subscribe. One of those is appropriate for the channel and should notify you as to when we drop these episodes. But they're Tuesday and Thursday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern every single week. And we're dropping some in the field filming pieces and hunt companions in the meantime. Those are Fridays and Sundays. We have some merch on the website. I'm wearing one of the new beanies, which is perfect for this time of year. I'm super stoked to get those in. We have some caps and hoodies and all kinds of cold weather stuff there as well. So that's cool if you're looking for holiday gifts or whatever. We appreciate you guys supporting us in that way. Also, Nick does as well because that's how he gets paid. So if you've written us on Instagram DM or the website, appreciate you guys writing in. We, especially with these bucks that we killed here in Iowa, you guys have obviously, a lot of you have been reaching out and stuff. So we apologize if we missed anybody, but we're trying on that end as well. But other than that,
here we go. It is November the 14th today. If you're listening to this, I can't do the math.
Mid-November, as they say.
It's before Thanksgiving. I think this is dropping.
Yes, I would say so. The
20.
Yeah. Next Thursday.
Actually, it may be the day before Illinois gun season, the 21st. I believe
that sounds right. Yeah,
I believe this is November 21st. If you're listening to this, a Thursday. In which case Jared is either on his way or about to leave for Illinois round two. One
of the two. Are you? I didn't mean to pose that as like I'm going. Are you have any interest in going?
No, I can't go.
Can't go. Okay.
No, I gotta get shit done here.
Okay.
I'm out of commish for at least a couple weeks here, probably
till December.
All
right.
Sometime in December
for work, or meaning you'll be hunting here with the kids. Or
a little both. Yeah. I mean, family stuff. I mean, I've got kids this weekend in Ohio. I probably need a weekend. Like I haven't been home and
for opener of youth. Yeah.
Next weekend I don't know, do something, and then Thanksgiving.
Well, soak it up while that weather is junk. You know what I mean? It's like.
Yeah. I mean, in a perfect world, I'd be going with you because the weather looks really, really good. But yeah, I'll push it off till post Thanksgiving and get out there during a cold snap in early December.
I need to find someone to watch my dogs.
What about your parents?
That's probably plan A.
Yeah.
That's probably what I'll do.
Yeah.
My mom is always of the attitude that, which is perplexing to me. I'm like, why don't you just let them run wild? I was like, you don't even have to watch them. Just put them in at night and feed them and stuff.
Don't even have to feed them. They'll be fine.
They're just not big dog people.
They had a dog.
Yeah, we had dogs all growing up.
Yeah.
But I just think at some point they transitioned to like, well, we just want to keep our house nice. And we like, having guests and stuff like that. And the dogs are just an inconvenience. So
they do get sloppy when they're up there.
I know there's flashes of like, it'd be nice to have a dog, but they're also can be an annoyance. I get it.
Oh, that floor would get ripped up with a dog.
Oh, inside. Yeah. I never bring them inside. They're outside dogs at the farm.
Yep, and they stay over in the garage. Yeah. Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah. So that's probably what I'll do.
Yeah.
Drop them off there.
Yeah, I mean, weather looks good. if you're a gun hunter in Illinois, Friday, Saturday, Sunday look about as good as you could plan for a gun season. Friday might be a little snowy, rainy in the morning, but it's going to clear out, and then Saturday, Sunday are just bluebirds, deer dead.
Yeah.
Kind of the second year in a row for that.
Yeah. Last week was the same.
Yeah. So I expect a lot of deer to die that day, or that weekend, and other states coming into play. I think this past weekend, if you're how you're listening to this, we had youth season in Ohio, which I'm going to take the boys down. We're just going to hunt Saturday. My dad's going to come down. We're doing a little mini deer camp Friday night, Saturday hunt, stay Saturday night, leave Sunday. So the kids will youth gun hunt on the Ohio farm. And my dad will bow hunt on Saturday. And so we got that. I think Missouri opens on Saturday. I think Wisconsin opens on Saturday. Kentucky's already open. Minnesota's already open. Michigan opens Friday the 15th. Speaking of which, John Eberhardt was calling me this morning. Got to call him back. Shout out to John, who's not listening probably. I think West Virginia maybe open Saturday.
What's John calling you for?
We're going to do a podcast with him.
That's what he's calling for.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just trying to get it on the schedule.
Kept up with his season at all? Did he do the Indiana thing this year? Or?
I don't know. I think so. Yeah, I think he did. Because I was trying to get him on a podcast before we left, but he was going to Indiana to hunt.
Wonder if he got one.
I don't know.
Or if they're going back to Kansas. Don't they, if they draw, always go back to Kansas? Like third, fourth week, or Thanksgiving week, isn't it?
Yeah, interesting. I started doing I've been talking to a few guys, probably listeners of the podcast, on Kansas. Several people not drawing with 1 point this year.
Yeah.
Like, soon on the horizon, it sounds like it's a 2 point and draw.
What units?
I don't know.
Southeast for the most part, I'm
probably.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely sounds like there's some, which, I mean, that's the regulator, right? I mean, it essentially, regulators, Warren G, scary song. If
I don't know that one.
You don't know Warren G regulators?
No.
Oh, dude, you gotta look that one up.
I don't think so.
That's before your time.
Okay.
That's before your time. You know it if you heard it.
Okay.
And but I mean, by doing so, that's just saying that there's too many people trying to hunt there. I mean, that's the regulation that's happening, right? If it takes 1 point or 2 points to draw, it's because there's too many applicants to hunt for the allocated permits.
Sure.
So I look at it as like, yeah, it sucks, but I think it's also a good thing versus like just being like, cool, let's just do more tags. Right?
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, I don't mean for this podcast to go kind of in that direction as far as like the tag allocation and access thing here necessarily, but it's like it is kind of perplexing to hear. I mean, that's another example of like, it's funny, and I'm kind of getting to the answer even as I'm asking the question in my own mind. That's how my brain works, I guess. Is like, if the states are telling you, hey, we're having less hunters, but also at the same time, it's harder and harder to draw. I guess I believe that in a sense. I think that is true, but I think more people are going to the archery season, and whether it's crossbow or vertical bow.
Yep.
And also people are very interested in quality, like a quality experience. I mean, they're going to those Midwestern states, paired with the technology that makes them more accessible, and all of the above. All of the above, everything we've talked about.
Yeah.
So, but that seems to be what's happening. So, I mean, I don't know what fixes that. Or if it needs to be fixed other than the other states fixing themselves, and relieving the pressure on the good, quote unquote, good states.
I think the biggest, we've had a lot of conversations around the declining hunter numbers and what's right and what's wrong and recruitment and retention. I think the most ignored number that I believe is also the most important number is number of hunt. Well, yeah, unfortunately it is the number of hunter days.
Yeah.
Because historically, like I'll just use our state.
It's like a saturation number.
I'll use our state of Pennsylvania, right? At one point in time, we literally had 1 million deer hunters, 1 million deer hunters in the state, right? Mm-hmm. We're down to, I think, 740,000. Mm-hmm. But, and this is not a crossbow. This is what it is. Because crossbows are now legal in the archery season, that has recruited a lot more people into the bow season.
How does it translate to days of field?
That's it. It has to be astronomically different than when we had 20 or 30% more hunters.
And I think without having the stats and the numbers in front of me, it is worse because I would guess, maybe I'm wrong.
What do you mean when you say worse?
I would say like we're having more of an impact on the ability to gain access, the ability
Absolutely.
to have a maturity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm going to just use made up numbers here. Let's say you said it was 1 million deer hunters in
Pennsylvania.
You know, maybe we had 1 million deer hunters that hunted an average of like 2 days a year. You know, and now you have whatever it is, 700,000 hunters that hunt probably an average of
10
to 15 days. You know what I mean? So the math is like, okay, what's that a multiple of? Like at least 150% increase of like, you know, just presence we're having in the woods.
At least 3 to 4 times higher, I would expect, from a saturation in the woods, which is what decreases access, right?
And the states are looking at that and they're like, well, we're not killing more deer. In fact, we're killing less deer. But
I don't know if that's a fact, though.
It could be, but if it is, it's because guys just, you know, we're just like, we talked about it a lot. We're just not interested in shooting does. You know, I mean, guys are trophy hunting. They want to shoot big bucks.
Yeah, we didn't go to Iowa to
and they
kill
have
doe.
The technology to show them what's there and what's not. So it's like we're effective at targeting and killing, you know. So we're high grading it. We're having more presence in the woods. We're having like, you know, all of these, in my opinion, as far as like the potential to grow quality deer nationwide, it's like we're doing the opposite.
I mean, from a biological side, and it sounds stupid, but it is
generally
the term.
Speaking.
It's called CPUE. It's basically catch per unit effort. So it's basically
I like that CPUE.
CPUE.
RGD2.
Yes, it's catch per unit effort, right? Which is essentially looking at per the hunter days, how much is that in relation to the harvest that has actually happened? So does Jared have to hunt 2 days in order to kill a deer? Does Jared have to hunt 10 days to kill a deer?
2 hours if it's Iowa.
If it's Iowa.
Yeah.
If you look at that, though, in years past, I would expect that we are more efficient at hunters with less numbers. So that average catch per unit effort is probably much greater in a positive way for harvesting than it was 20 years ago when we had more hunters.
Maybe, but I think that the scale of...
It almost has to be if we're killing similar numbers of deer.
We're also passing more deer than we ever did. Like,
yeah, but we're killing similar numbers. It's not like, I don't think anybody's going to look at, besides like in places that have had like significant regulation change, like, you know, if we've decreased the number of does that you're allowed to harvest, or in Missouri, we've reduced it from $3 state to $2 state. I know a lot of people didn't kill $3, but we did that. All of those things happening could affect that comparison of numbers. But in places that it's consistent, you know, even like a state like Pennsylvania, if I look back to what we harvested in 2005 after like concurrent buck doe season and antler restrictions were in place, versus less hunters, significantly less hunters now in 2023 or 24, I bet those numbers are very similar. The problem is it's all based on models that are, there's a lot of inference happening, right? Because there's a small amount of deer that are actually checked in, and then we apply it to a model to get us to a total number. And the smaller the amount that goes in to get a bigger number, basically it's going to have more variation for error, right? If I knew that 90% of the deer were checked in and I put it in a model to accomplish what the other 10% is, that's easy. But if I get 30% of the deer, I got to figure out what the other 70% is. That's trash. But you have to have something.
Yeah, you need accurate input for the models to work.
That's it. So,
well, and there's variables that probably affect and I don't know what you do about that, but like, you know, the political distrust or, you know, right? It probably has something to do with it, or like a frustration towards whatever, law enforcement, season, you know, changes or whatever, probably has an impact on people's willingness to cooperate with the system, to check deer in or to buy licenses or whatever, you know? And then you have the poaching element and, man, there's a lot of variables. It's like, it's
a lot,
you know, not just on that end, but, you know, you start looking at like the EHD, like natural die-off, like environmental factors.
Huge. I mean, those are the things that I won't say that states don't acknowledge, because I've seen states like even Indiana have backed off on some of their allocations because of North Dakota. But if you think of like, okay, purely hunter harvested and like, let's say deer vehicle collision, those are probably the two that they look at the most. Okay, EHD, giant factor. Maybe not giant, but for sure there.
Can be.
Poaching.
Yeah.
There. Harvest without a license. I think that's a much, much bigger number than people think.
Yeah, probably.
Much bigger number. I mean, I remember years ago when we put on like, hey, the barrier to entry to this is to get your hunter safety course to get a license. Overwhelmingly, the comments were like, I don't need a license.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because you're a landowner in the state. It's like, I'm not buying a hunting license.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say maybe half of it is malicious, or like, and they know that it's illegal, and the other half is like,
they don't know.
They don't know. They're like, well, I own land. What do you mean?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go shoot this deer. So yeah, I mean, it's there are a ton of factors that come in, and I say that all because we've had a lot of people in different states start talking about, boy, like, deer hunting is not what it used to be, and I'm not sure it will ever get back to what it used to be in certain areas, whether that's because of over harvest or EHD or liberalization of seasons or a combination of all of them. But there's some grim areas out there, and that's a hard realization to start to figure out here. I mean, Emily and I had the discussion, not over this deer, but over the Ohio deer. And she's like, there's a firm reality that when Harlan's 30 years old, like, we may not see a deer over 3.5 years old anymore because of things like EHD and CWD and liberalizations and all of these changes.
I do think, and I'm sure it's a controversial now, you know what I mean? But it's like, guys will do fences before it gets to that, for sure.
Yeah, I would agree.
For sure. Frankly, not that we're there by any means, but like you and I included, like, dude, if that's the reality,
I don't think I could do it. I would shoot 2 and 3 year olds. I couldn't be a high fence guy. I've hunted in a high fence before, multiple times. In fact, I've had clients that have had me shoot deer in high fences. See it already.
I'm not advocating for fences, obviously. You know what I mean? But like, you do see prescriptions happening now already, where it's like, if you spend $1 million on a piece of property,
there's a lot of people doing it,
and your goal is to grow, a certain class of deer. It's like there. At one point, it was very black and white, and like and it should be, for the sake of argument. It's like, well, fences or no fences. But then, and we've had this conversation in the past, we're like, okay, well, what about one fence? You know what I mean? What if it's just that neighbor? You're like, okay, well, clearly that neighbor is illegally baiting and they're just shooting all the 3-year-olds. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, I guess I can see the argument there to put one up, but, yeah. So, and I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I don't know where that road leads.
I get it. I 100% get it. I think
it shouldn't. Before it reaches that point, the state has the ability. They have all the tools to make us less efficient at killing and targeting those deer.
I don't know. Boy, not to go down that rabbit hole, I don't know if I see a state intervening. And that's the landowner rights thing that's going to get real dicey real quick.
What do you mean?
I could see a state intervening that a large fence like that on your property to impede a public resource, that there'll be some regulation that drops on that.
Yeah, maybe. Well, but at that point, they still can't stop you from having a privatized deer herd. So, I mean, maybe that is what draws the line.
Yeah, but that's closing everything.
Right. So maybe that's what draws the line between.
I mean, you better have a big property. You don't want to hunt a closed-in 140-acre property.
Of course not.
That's trash.
No, of course not. Who does? Yeah. Well, it's not like guys want to do that. You know what I mean? They're doing it like.
Well, why do you think they have to do it?
Because the pressure on the exterior is too great. Everybody is too.
But that's deer hunting.
Well, but deer hunting's changed quite a bit.
Yeah, but I mean that's what makes a deer like that so special. Is like he survived in the free range. He could have got killed at 2 years old.
Yeah. But I mean, that example is from like the best management example.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Nobody else is even close.
Sure.
So that doesn't happen in Ohio, like on 150 acres.
Probably not
for the most part. You know what I mean?
It could, but probably not.
It's one in a million.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Where
still rare in Iowa.
Yeah. But I think speaks to, yes, obviously, yeah, we can't just generalize the state.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It speaks to the property itself and like a specific circumstance that got a deer to a certain age, and they have to have everything else going for them. But
yeah, I don't know. It's a dicey thing, because what I don't want is
nobody wants that. I think everybody can agree. Like I would say 90% of people that would say, yeah, we don't want fences. And I'm certainly one of them.
Yeah.
But those same 90% of people would say, I want to be able to shoot a deer like, one of these.
Agree.
We all agree. And it's like, okay, well, what are the things that are preventing that from happening? I think very easily, again, it's a blanket statement, but you and I can look at corn piles and cell cameras as the two lowest hanging fruit. Not that I'm saying, hey, just these are bad, these have to go away. Like, they're an effective tool and they're awesome. We love cell cameras.
Yeah.
And I use corn piles.
They're an effective tool.
You know what I mean? They're tools, but they are the things, in my opinion, that like
it would seem like the removal
that prevent most deer from reaching this age class.
Yeah, it would seem like the removal of those would assist in not having to go to a fence
Start
level.
with that. There's no argument from a quality herd management standpoint. There's no argument for corn piles, especially. Cell cameras is like a weird one because it's like the pictures of those deer do help from a management decision standpoint, but there also is nobody passing 4-year-olds like in Ohio. You know what I mean? That doesn't happen. So it's like that's the managed properties versus unmanaged properties conversation, where it's like we can manage them to a point.
Sure.
But nobody's passing 4-year-olds, or 5-year-olds, and to use Lukoski as like an extreme outlier. And I'm not saying like that even people should be in this, but I mean, he has had a situation where he's had the ability to see deer reach maximum potential.
Yeah, he wants to get him to 8.5. That's what he told us in person.
And if everybody, without knowing that number, if everybody's like, we'd love to see these deer reach maximum potential, cool, it's 8. That's what it is. So you can't shoot them till they're 8.
99% of guys have never seen an 8-year-old buck.
99.9% of guys are not passing 5, 6, 7-year-old deer. Certainly us included.
Me included. Yeah.
Certainly us included. So, but that is the reality of, like, if you look at it purely from a herd management standpoint, how do we get them there? Okay, that's what you got to do. And the removal of those things is not going to guarantee that deer make it to 5, 6, 7 years old. Certainly not. But those are the things that are, in my mind, guaranteeing that they don't. HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, we've been using Deer Grow products for a long time. The Plot Start and Plot Boost, more recently Plot Till. Now we've got 3 new liquid fertilizers that have been put in the mix that will cover everything we could want for a food plot program.
It's huge, man. The more food plotting we do, it's like, man, the liquids just make sense. Like, whether it's herbicides or the Plot Start and Plot Boost, and now the fertilizers getting mixed in. It's like, man, I can combine all of those in certain cases and do less passes for more results.
I mean, it's all about efficiency. I mean, like you said, less passes. If you're out there treating your beans with glyphosate in the summertime, you can mix in this fertilizer, do that all at once. You have the boost in there to help some metabolism. It's all about efficiency when we're talking about food plots. And really the big difference on these liquid fertilizers is you're bypassing some of these soil limitations, pH limitations, the soil type. In a lot of cases, we talk about dry fertilizers only being available for 17% of what you put down in the first year. These liquid fertilizers straight into the plant are 90% available in the first year. Huge difference in what you're going to see in growth.
It's huge. And so right now you can use code HUNTR15 for 15% off any of the Deer Grow products on their website. And as always,
better food plots, bigger deer. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you have to go somewhere in that direction before this fencing. And it is. I
100%.
Mean, people are thinking like, are these guys really talking about high fences? They're happening right now. Not fully, but multiple sides.
Oh, yeah.
Up to 3 sides being closed in.
Pretty commonly. Yeah, you start talking to like anybody that's consulting on properties and stuff, like whether they're advising them or not, they're like, oh, yeah, they're out there. And for the situation that I laid out before, like you can kind of understand why. It's like if I spend $1 million on a farm, that's a ton of money, and my neighbor is illegally baiting and killing these 2, 3, 4-year-old deer. It's like, I mean, yeah. On one hand, you don't want to put a fence up. On the other hand, you're like, I have to protect my investment. Like it's leaking out the bottom of the boat.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems kind of foreign for us in the Northeast and in the Midwest. Like most of the time when we think high fences, we think like deer farms, like genetically, superior type deer. High fences are really common, obviously in Texas, but they're very common in Texas, Mississippi, and Alabama. That's where most of my experience was with them, of guys fencing in, upwards of 2,000-3,000 acres, and managing the herd within that, not releasing genetics. They're managing like the native herd within that. And I think that's by policy, at least in Mississippi. So yeah, it's an interesting
to be clear.
time.
Yeah, I mean, people should understand the Texas thing. Like every deer in Texas is an offense for the most part.
Most of them. Or got out of a fence.
Like 90% of them, right? It's a very high percentage.
It's a very high percentage.
And it's just what it is. It's just the culture down there.
There are some big ranches that are not, but you're talking like 15, 20, 30,000 acre ranches.
They're mega ranches.
Yeah, but a lot of the 500, in fact, I talked to somebody the other day, I can't remember who, but they had like a 15 or 16,000 acre ranch, and they were going to fence it off into like 1,000-acre chunks. So there'd be like 15 chunks that were in ownership in this one large high fence. So you wouldn't have individual fences in between, but you would all be part of a larger high fence with your little 200 to 1,000 acres.
Interesting.
So it was like a subdivided community, right? Because like it's an enclosed community, it's an island, and then inside of that, like you'd have 1,000, I'd have 1,000, you know. And so I'm hunting what seems to be like an open bordered. Gotta watch that open bordered property, but really it's as part of a larger enclosed facility.
Right.
Yeah, it's really, and that's completely different than a lot of the ones in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, which is guys go in 1,000 acres of pines and fence that and just manage the internal herd.
Why do you think that culture exists in Texas? Was that done out of like poaching? Out of like what? Why did they feel the need to do that? How did that happen?
I think it's out of control.
Yeah,
would be my guess.
Control.
Control for the herd.
But what was the thing that they're like, we need more control?
Well, in Texas, it's a lot of the introducing of genetics, which you can't do in a free range population.
Oh, so it was out of wanting to introduce genetics.
I think so.
Okay.
Because there are big free ranging places in South Texas. That's why a lot of guys go and hunt South Texas. Is there's big free ranging ranches that are superior genetics but are non-fenced. Versus some of these smaller properties that are having, you know, genetics introduced into them. You're not seeing that. There's certain states, and
you can't do that, right? You can't introduce genetics to a free-ranging herd.
No, that's why they're fencing it.
Right.
But there's states like, and I don't know if this has changed, so don't quote me on it, but in Mississippi, when I lived there, you could have a high fence, but you could only manage the native deer that you captured in that high fence. You couldn't move deer into it, right? You couldn't introduce genetics into that high fence. So you could fence 2,000 acres, but you were stuck with whatever was in that 2,000 acres to build your herd and manage it.
What?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Completely different than the Texas atmosphere of things.
That's weird.
Completely different.
Huh. That's the opposite of what I would expect. Like in Ohio, you have to like make sure walk them out and make sure there are no deer.
You fence whatever's in it, and that's what you keep.
That's weird.
Yep. So, and again, that might have changed. That was 10, 14 years ago when I lived there, but I think it has. I think you still can't bring in genetics and modify that herd inside legally. So, yeah, there's different structures for it, but I mean, ultimately it goes back. My biggest fear, I'm 40, so maybe it won't even happen in my lifetime, right? My biggest fear is that deer like this on the table just aren't fucking cool anymore. Because it's like, well, I fenced in my property, I just let them get to 8 years old and then I kill them and they all look like that. And it's like, who the fuck cares then?
The dynamic would definitely be different. Like,
I think that's the death of deer hunting. If we get to a level where people are saying, boy, all my big deer are getting killed by my neighbors, I need to start fencing, deer hunting is effectively dead in my opinion.
It's certainly a different dynamic.
It becomes the European model of like only the rich can hunt. And like nobody gives a shit about a rich guy killing a big stag over there. Like, cool, man.
Yeah. Well, that element of it is probably the biggest change. Like you wouldn't have the mystification at the public citizen level or whatever that is.
Yeah, it becomes privatized.
Like, because right now it's like that's the thing. Everybody's like, oh, did you hear about that buck? There's, did you guys see whatever? And then if that's the case, I still think that. And I can see objectively why people do it. I can understand that they want to have control over the herd and they want to remove, the pressure element. They want to just hunt what they feel as free ranging or as unimpeded of a deer movement as possible. And the fence definitely accomplishes that. I mean, it removes any other human element. However, it limits it in a way. Well. And it's funny to consider the number because it's like, if it's 100 acres, it's like, man, they can't go anywhere. It's like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it is, okay, if 1,000 acres, it's like, all right, well, they have more ability to move here. Okay, 10,000 acres. Okay, well, that's bigger than their range anyways. Like, so It's an interesting conversation at the very least.
I mean, they could still die from natural mortality or EHD or whatever, but the hunting element in or deer vehicle collision, like the two biggest killers of deer, is completely removed from that, even at a 10,000 level.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, and I think then that deer hunting's done. I mean, even if you were in a 10,000 acre fence and you killed that deer,
I do agree with you.
It'd be
record.
like,
yeah, I agree.
dude, it's a huge deer, but like it means nothing to me at that point. I'd be completely numb to it.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never lived it. I can certainly see your argument, and I would tend to agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for that in any means, but I can see why guys are doing it. If they feel like it's not, if their goal is to kill deer like this, and there's a reality to the difference, like just to that animal versus a 2 or 3 year old animal. They're different things.
Completely.
They're different things. And in my opinion, these are way more fun to hunt.
Until you take all the pressure away from them, then they're to me, they're no different than killing a 1-year-old.
Nah, I don't think so. They're still different.
I mean, when they're completely unpressured,
the pressure
deer,
element is different, but they're different animals no matter how you look at it. I see what you're saying. Like, like a 1-year-old or a 2 or 3 year old pressured deer may be as hard to kill as one of these in Iowa or in a high fence environment.
In a high fence, I wouldn't say in Iowa.
In a high fence environment.
In a high fence environment,
but they're still just their mannerisms and how they act is still very different. Pressure aside. Yeah,
it definitely changes them. Like I remember, so Charlie Alsheimer, who used to take all the pictures for like deer and deer hunting and stuff in New York, had a high fence facility of which I think he just fenced in the wild deer in there, and he just let them age. He like didn't hunt it, but it was his photography area. And that dude would get pictures of like that 160-inch buck, 5-year-old buck, from me to that buck away. And that deer would like look at him and then just go on and do deer things. He had no fear. There was no fear of humans because humans never killed him. They never interacted with him. They never, it was just Charlie was in there taking pictures all the time. And so they just got used to it.
Well, they get used to him in that activity. I think there's an instinctive fear of humans in deer.
To a point.
Yeah. Well, it's not what we experience on a daily basis with deer because we're constantly killing them. You know what I mean? They've learned that too. But instinctually, they have some fear of humans.
Yeah, because something...
They know.
Because it's always been around that, whether they're in a car or with a gun or a bow, like you have to survive. I think when you take that survival element not out of the equation, but you lower it to its greatest possibility by protecting them in a fence, it literally comes down to natural mortality, disease, which is included in natural mortality, and then if people are hunting them. And even at that, it's a very controlled hunting. It's not like, boy, they're going to walk across the line and get smacked by 4 guys shooting across the field.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to consider, and it's obviously not something that we're advocating for, but it is something that you're seeing. I mean, it's out there and it's happening, and I believe that it's done out of feeling like that may not be possible.
I just don't know what they're trying to accomplish. Like, if they're trying to accomplish that, it means nothing. When you remove the things that make this deer so rare, which is he could die every year at any time. When you take that out of it...
Well, you can't remove it completely. You can...
Well, what are you not removing? Disease.
Yeah, disease, natural mortality, death between bucks.
Yeah, it's 10, 15% maybe of their death. The rest is hunter and vehicles.
Yeah. So that's what they're removing.
So you could produce a lot of those deer. That deer becomes... increasingly less important at that point.
Agreed.
And less unique.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, no doubt. So basically the point being, these are so cool because they live through all of the things that are out there. Yeah.
And they don't exist.
Every variable, they weren't protected in any way.
They're unicorns, essentially.
Yeah.
It probably, we were trying to do the math, and I don't know. Say that Iowa, it's different, but that's probably a 1 in several 100,000 bucks type deer. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
I would think so.
I mean, some specific character, like his mass is 1 in a few 100,000, I would bet.
I mean, it's, given he broke that point, but if he had that point, he's a low 90s mainframe 8. I mean,
Yep. Yeah. If you're going to use that classification, technically he's got whatever 14.
Yeah, I'm not just going pure like he's this inches.
He's a giant deer.
Yeah,
there's no doubt.
The rarity of the deer is what makes him so cool.
I'll hold him up. Everybody's probably seen our lives and stuff. We'll hold both these deer up. Here's my Iowa buck. Get it from two different angles here. So I don't have the score sheet in front of me necessarily, but you guys can see he's a mainframe 8, which just means, here's your browse, 2s, 3s, 4s, and then your extras are he's got a kicker, he's got these like inside devil points on both sides, and then he broke off what probably was like a 4 to 6 inch point here. So if you're considering the primary frame, that would have made him a mainframe 8 point, and he scored, I think, 187 as is with that broken.
And I think we were like 164 and change as an 8 point without the trash.
Yep. So he's 26 and change inch beams, almost 50 inches of mass, you said?
Yeah, like 47 or something.
Which is insane mass. I mean, that's ridiculous. A lot of that,
especially for an 8 point,
is up here, and especially because like this, it's not like you have the webbing between a 3 and a 4.
No, you lose.
So the 10 points will score better there, but so it's a freaking stud. You know what I mean?
Yeah, world class deer, for sure.
And Jeremy killed his freaking mid-60s deer, who I feel bad because when you stack him next to something like that, but on his own, that's a monster.
Yep. Just
that's what we went to Iowa for.
Yep. Framey, long tines. Better mass than I thought, but again, after holding it next to Jared's, it was like, I don't think he's got.
We were
good mass.
tainted. You know what I mean? You hold a dinosaur.
Yeah, he's got him as 5-inch bases on him, and he carries over 4 the whole way up. In fact, his
4s are awesome. That left 4s.
Yeah, over 9-inch left 4 on that side. Obviously, got a G5 on this end.
Kickers on both 2s.
Yep, split on 2s. So. And it's cool that Travis, one of the landowners, wrote me last night. He's actually sending me the match set of sheds from this deer last year.
That's super cool.
So I'm gonna try to incorporate those on the pedestal. But yeah, I mean, just 23-inch beams, like 11-inch on this G3, 10-inch on this G3, splits like you said on the 2s, really good 4s.
A cagey sucker.
Just cagey. Yeah.
Built a score for
sure. Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's Iowa, right? And we joke about it all the time of like, oh, it's Iowa, like there's booners around every corner.
For the record, we hunted twice.
We did.
one each.
Yeah, it makes it but what makes it special is like these deer still have to survive, right? Like even where we were at on the properties, like there's plenty of neighbor pressure. There's public not far from where I was at.
Well, so let's get away from the fence thing. Like Iowa is doing things to protect this experience.
That's why these deer are possible.
These kind of deer, and so I think, I don't know about the statistic, but if we're using fences as like the very last resort that guys are using to get deer like this, I would say it's way lower in Iowa, or there's less of a necessity for it than in other states that are not as well managed.
Yeah, I mean, unlike some of these other states where people will be like, oh, don't talk about it. You're going to draw all this attention. Doesn't matter if we draw attention to Iowa or not. It took Jared and I, this was the 6th year, 5 years of points.
It took us 5 points. I guarantee it takes us 7 or 8 next time.
Yeah, and that's
I won't hunt there again until I'm 40.
Yeah, I'll be 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
like 2 or 3 times in a lifetime, maybe.
That's just and it's good. I have no
for a rut hunt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have no beef with that. That is what allows these types of deer to produce.
I do. That sucks. My beef.
Well, what do you want?
My beef is not with Iowa. I want all these other states to fix their shit.
Well, that's why
there's
Iowa's
no
so
reason
hard to
that
hunt.
we should have to drive all the way to Iowa. Like every other state has the potential to grow these kind of deer. They just don't do it. Yeah, I mean and so people leave those other states to go to Iowa, which makes it harder to draw. Yeah,
and that's why Kansas is getting that way.
Yep.
We talked about earlier. Kansas might take 2 points now to draw for archery when I first started.
Don't blame those states. It's every other state's fault that we all have to go to those states to kill big deer.
Yeah, when I first started hunting there in 2013, I think was the first year I hunted, I could have bought it over the counter. There were that many leftover tags. And, fast forward 11 years, and now it's taken me 2 points potentially to draw. And again, that's the protection, right? That's the barrier to protecting that herd. But
the quota is the quota, right? Like it probably hasn't changed that much, and the reality is just that the pressure from other states whose experiences are declining because of technology, because of all these other things. Yeah, they're going to where it's still possible.
Yep, it dumped it into it. So, Yeah, I mean, and clearly, like we'll talk about it here in a bit. Like we're hunting Illinois, and I know Missouri's still producing good deer, Wisconsin's producing good deer, Oklahoma's producing really good deer. Like there's plenty of places that are over the counter that are still producing good deer. It's the hard part, and it's talking to enough people. I fully realize that not everybody is looking to kill this deer, right? Like, would they kill it if it walked by? 100%, or at least they try. They have to keep your composure. I know that this isn't the goal. They're not passing up $50 to kill something like this. The hardest part is finding that balance between creating a healthy herd that has the ability to put age structure on and produce deer like this, as well as an ample opportunity for people to kill deer that just want to kill deer.
Yeah.
Where that really is
you want to do it without limiting opportunity at all.
Yeah.
If possible.
Yes. But where that's hard is like, I'm fine if you just want to kill a buck. If you want to kill a buck to kill a buck, that's your prerogative. Go for it. Like, do it. Don't use the meat hunting excuse because you should kill does then. We need to kill does. This country needs to shoot does in a lot of areas. Not maybe every area, but in a lot of areas. Yeah. You should kill does. So if you're like, well, but I want to kill buck. Okay, cool. You're not meat hunting then. Maybe the meat is a byproduct.
Yeah, and that's fine. Go kill a buck. Like, I don't care.
Yes.
Of course.
But it's got to
tell anybody what to shoot.
It's got to be in a balanced situation to where, and this is not like from a, maybe it is. I mean, it's not tying into the high fence thing, but like the people who are wanting to kill big deer year after year consistently are pumping a pile of money. Pile of money into deer management.
Into their properties,
Into their properties, into gear, which is going to the Pittman Robertson side of things. Like, what is funding a lot of this state level management is a lot of the guys who are looking for deer like this because they're rich. They're putting in a lot of money. We've talked to a pile of them where it's like, I can't believe, it's hard for me to fathom how much money they're spending on deer hunting when I'm like, I don't even make that a year.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like if I made that much money,
awesome. I'm glad those guys are out there.
I would do the same thing, right? But when that's happening, and this is where it kind of ties back into the high fence thing or whatever it's going to look like, if these guys start to get discouraged because they can't produce this because the state liberalization or they're trying to please everyone or it's opportunity, they're going to stop spending money in those places. In fact, we talked to a guy here who quickly is like, boy, I'm going to start investing in the elk side. Like, it's kind of untapped. It's cool. Like there's big opportunity out there. And he's been very successful on the whitetail side, but he sees the threshold, the wall. In fact, he may think that we're past the point of best stuff. So what I don't want, because if those guys stopped doing that stuff, everybody underneath it, including us, will suffer.
I don't think they'll ever stop doing it. I think they'll fence it before they do that. Well,
that would completely cut us off at the knees. It would ruin deer hunting for everybody underneath.
And they don't want to do it. You know what I mean? It's the state regulation that's pushing it. The Hunter Podcast is brought to you by Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
Man, Jared, we are tree stand fanatics, and I think the one thing that we have learned over all these years is to kill big bucks, we got to be mobile. We've been hunting out of Lone Wolves for many years, the original Lone Wolf, and then obviously with the custom gear stuff, we're using the 0.5 and the 0.75. Yeah. And the one thing that we talked about is like, what if there were no cables? Here we are.
I really just don't know how you can beat it, frankly. But, a lot of that came, too, from a relationship that we've built with the DeQuistos. We've had both Cody and Andre on the podcast a few times. The passion for hunting, the outlook on the sport and stuff, I think is eye to eye with how we look at it. Everything that has gone into building this brand and to building these tree stands is something that we want to be a part of.
This is the 40th anniversary of these guys creating tree stands that have been critical to how we hunt whitetail deer today. If you look over the past, you'll see Andre's designs being implemented across so many stands over the years. Such a cool thing, but really has changed the way that we all hunt whitetail deer from above now.
Right now, you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, to get 7% off anything on the entire website. Be the Lone Wolf. They already all live in Iowa and Kansas.
Yeah,
all of them. They saw, they're like, well, this is the only place this is possible to begin with. It's still very hard. I still have to own hundreds or thousands of acres. Run down the list of like, of the guys that your Lakoskis, your Drurys, your Bomars, your,
Slies,
Yeti guys, the Slies, you know what I mean? Like all, great guy, really, you know what I mean? It's not like they're doing anything maliciously. Their goal was to grow and hunt dinosaurs, so they're like, where is this possible? Iowa and Kansas seem to be one of the few, or if you can, get into a neighborhood in a state like Illinois or Missouri, or Indiana or Wisconsin. I mean, the right neighborhood anywhere can do big things. You know what I mean? So I mean, but I don't know. It just we're talking about like an extreme far case here, where it's like at the very end of it, there are guys, and it's funny to consider whether or not we're in them at all. It's like, do you just accept the fact that you'll never be able to hunt a 3+ year old deer if the state regulations continue to trend in that direction, or do you or do you impose something that gives you more control, like a fence, or like whether it's one side or multiple sides? I don't know.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So that's
I mean, there's a point in this discussion, because we're not in the we're not in the fence category. We don't have the money to do that anyways. Like, it doesn't freaking matter.
I very much agree with your stance that it makes it way less cooler. Removes I
mean, it would ruin everything that we probably do.
It would ruin.
I mean,
you're right.
If we hunted a property initially, and this is hard for people if we hunted a property was, I don't care, 1,000 acres, and there were 9 of these guys running around, they'd be cool.
And it was a high fence.
Yeah, they'd be cool, but it'd be like not nearly as impactful of what we're looking at right now.
It's not what we're doing. It's a different thing.
Yeah, it's like, okay, cool. Like, we're gonna shoot 4 of these 9.
Yeah, it's not hunting. That's how we feel about a high fence now. Like if it's all fence, and to say it's not hunting, I mean, it can be construed so many different ways. But like, it's not the same thing as hunting wild deer. Yeah.
And why I say that is because I want people like us underneath to understand that if you push these guys far enough, like if you abuse, and I don't want to say abuse the situation, that's the wrong word. If you push the bar as far as possible because the state lets you, and I have nothing, this is not an illegal discussion. This is, you're doing a legal thing because the state says you can do this. But from a reality check, if you push these guys far enough, they will do something to the extreme, possibly fencing, and your deer hunting at your level will go to dog shit.
What are you saying? I mean, what's the word of caution?
The word of caution is like, don't just enjoy hunting, embrace hunting, have fun doing it. If you want to kill a buck, kill a buck. If you want to kill a 1-year-old, kill a 1-year-old. But understand that there's a point there to where this is kind of like the evolution of a hunter standpoint. It's like, if you go out and kill a 1-year-old every year, you're not affecting the herd population. I don't care, right? It doesn't bother me necessarily. If you're out there trying to kill like a really, really good deer that is young because he's a really, really good deer, I think that's what's starting to push these high-level guys to thinking about fencing. Yeah. And when they do that, what I say that is because when they do that, it will completely ruin hunting for all of us at the underneath level. These guys have money that they'll do whatever they need to do to kill these deer. Yeah.
Can I disagree with you? Like in a way, I don't hold hunters accountable. I think, yes, that's the mindset that we'd love for everyone, including especially our neighbors, to adopt and see what's possible. We can't like hold that expectation and say, hey, you should do this or you should do that. But like, obviously, talk to your neighbors. And if your goal is to do this, I mean, just on any front, whether it's deer hunting or anything that you're trying to achieve with your property, communicate with your neighbors and try to have a good thing going there. But at the same time, I can't hold hunters accountable for hunting within their legal right. I would hope that they would, want to take that evolution, but it's the state's responsibility to manage the resource, and I really do hold them accountable.
Yeah, and the hardest part, I guess, in that situation, and I guess that's maybe it came off wrong. Like, I'm not going to tell a hunter not to go out and kill a 150-inch 3-year-old. Like,
yeah, but I get you would appeal to them to say, like, hey, and it's a tough one because it's the conversation.
And it varies by every state. Like, I would never tell anybody, including myself in Pennsylvania, to pass a 150-inch 3-year-old, right? Like, a 3-year-olds barely exist in this state.
If it was your neighbor, you would ask. You wouldn't tell them to, but you would try to appeal to them and say, "Hey, man, like I think there's a fair chance this thing gets passed." You no? Yeah, you would. So at a certain point, if it seems
not
possible,
in this state, I would not do it in this state. I don't have enough land.
Well, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. You're considering the factors of whether or not they would live. If you felt like if your neighbor would pass it and there was a chance that deer could survive, I mean, Yeah, that's what would drive you to have that conversation, to be like, hey, dude, it's you and I, and like, maybe this neighbor over here, but I think we can get them through. Obviously, I'm not telling you what to do, but like, what do you think? Like, should we try to give him a pass, or?
I think there's too much pressure and too small parcels in this state.
Well, and again, I hate just going state by state because they're big.
But that's what it
areas.
is. I mean,
yeah, it is. But there's also like there's communities, there's neighborhoods in any state. You know what I mean? There's terrible places to hunt in Iowa, and there's great places to hunt. You know, a lot of it has to do with parcel size and remoteness and who's hunting them.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to say. All I guess
Same
I'm
with
saying,
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, all I'm saying in that situation, and again, I'm not telling people, it's not that, like, kill whatever's legal. Do whatever you want. Like, that's your legal right to do so. I can see the writing on the wall of some of these upper-end guys, and I'm also pleading to them to not do it, not fence it, not cut off 3 sides and leave a side open. Because I really don't think 3 years from now you're going to think it's as cool as you think it is now.
Yeah, agreed.
I think you're going to ruin it for yourself.
Yeah, and I don't sense necessarily that like there's a bunch of people at that point.
They're teetering.
Maybe
they're teetering, and it's because this is a hard thing, and I do and I don't like. They're investments for them. Right, these guys are spending millions of dollars on land, on habitat, on food plots, on equipment, millions of dollars. And so when they're investing in all that and they see what the potential is, and then the neighbor kills it, first of all, for the neighbor, if let's say it's a 4-year-old 165-inch buck, I just did one. That could be the biggest buck. That's the second biggest buck I've ever killed in my life, right? It could be the biggest buck that person's ever killed. I don't blame that neighbor. It's the biggest buck he's ever killed.
Right.
From the other side, that guy is like, oh my God, 4 years to get him to that point. Next year, he would have been 80s or whatever.
Yes. Well, see, but look, so what I'm saying there is nobody should blame you for killing a 4-year-old.
I agree with that.
And on the same property, there's 5-6+ year old 180s. That's the state's doing. They've managed access in a way that you were able to come in, a non-resident that waited 5-6 years to kill a deer like this, and still guys have the opportunity to hunt.
But they also have one of the smallest hunting populations in the states for whitetails.
Sure.
From a number side, and that's just because there's not a lot of people in the state of Iowa.
Yeah. Well, and because of that, they've got things still on the table. Like the residents can still shoot 3 bucks, and they have
a lot of things.
Some liberal things that exist, for the residents, and that's fine. Like it's weighted towards the residents. There is enough opportunity in the United States to hunt big mature whitetail deer, any class of whitetail deer, that if the states would like get on the same page with how to manage that, so that people can have this experience and every experience in between to be able to shoot whatever they want. I think it's more than possible.
I think that's the hardest thing to come to a conclusion on, though. Like, what does that mean to have the experience to kill that, as well as have the experience for the guy who just wants to go out and shoot the first 8-point he sees every year?
You got to limit things that kill him. That's it.
Yeah,
you got to make them harder to kill.
Yep. And then that goes against the ability to manage the deer herd and the insurance companies and everything else that comes from up above.
What do you mean on the first one? The ability to manage?
You got to keep your deer herd in check with the habitat. You got to kill enough deer to keep it in check with the habitat. So, if you make them harder to kill.
Well, yeah, but that's a nuanced thing there. I'm not saying make deer harder to kill. I'm saying make 3- and 4-year-old bucks harder to target.
Yep. Yeah. And I would say I would agree with that. And you think
I don't want any less deer killed.
Cameras and corn pals are that. I mean, that's the argument we've had.
That is
like
what I'm saying.
We've had it with Tonkovich and Rex in Ohio. It's like if we take away corn pals, they think the herd harvest will dramatically decrease.
And I would say probably that there will be a dip momentarily. It needs to be complemented by and advocating for everything in between. Like you can tell guys like, hey, don't try to kill big bucks or shoot more does, and they're just like, yeah, whatever. So there needs to be a legitimate reason for people to be, first of all, less capable of targeting and killing 3- and 4-year-old bucks, and more willing to shoot any buck, and or shoot more does.
Yeah, that's the fine line, and that's where and maybe I misspoke it earlier. Like I'm not trying to tell the everyday
no, I was glad
hunter.
that you said it that way.
I'm not trying to have the everyday hunter think kill whatever you want in a legal manner.
Yeah.
As a word of caution, though, There are people with stupid money that will do anything to protect their hunting interest. And if they take extreme measures, high fencing 3 sides, high fencing 2 sides, high fencing your property, your hunting will be nothing like it has ever been before. It will change completely. And where the issue I have with that is it's a public resource still. So like how, and I get the landowner rights thing, but like you're putting a fence up to alter a public reset. You can tell me it's for safety or whatever. That's bullshit. You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, that's the state dictating how you can do that.
Well, I think it's a complete, this is the stuff, just like drones, just like cell cameras. This is the stuff that's advancing so fast. The state hasn't even thought about it yet. They haven't even caught up to it yet.
Well, and I'm with you that they may step in at some point and say, hey, no fences, or...
And I don't want more regulation. Keep in mind that. That's the tricky part here. That's why I guess I'm pleading to both sides here as the everyday guy, like, hey, we understand that guys in the top end are trying to produce these deer and get them to 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. Acknowledge that. You may never be there, but just acknowledge that they're doing a lot of work and putting in a lot of money to do that. On the other side, the big money guy, please acknowledge the fact that if you take those extreme measures, all the little guys underneath you are going to have a completely different hunting experience than they should, because you're trying to control these.
Yeah, it's the state, man. The state. Somebody's got to be the adult in the room, basically. Like,
I know
it should.
And I hate that because of the regulations.
It should happen at both levels. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, we can like be bummed out about the fact that it becomes like a political, or it becomes a state thing, and it's like, you know, the government doesn't do anything well, you know, frankly. But at the same time, it is evolving, and you do need to. You can call it regulation, or you can call it management, or you can call it conservation. You know what I mean? It's like, because you just can't trust the general public not to destroy a public resource.
I was gonna
right. That's the tragedy of the commons. That's like
the tragedy of the commons.
Yeah.
HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Spartan Forge.
Dude, maps. Mapping, right?
Yeah.
It all starts with a map, a visualization of a new property, into the fine-tuning of different food plots, different habitat projects, where those are going to go, all the way to sharing pins and looking kind of like beyond the layers with something like LiDAR, which is exclusive to Spartan Forge as of now.
Yeah, and whether we're looking at it from a management side to put in food plots or switchgrass, or if we're taking a run and gun public approach on Kansas, it all starts with a map. It starts with a strategy there. You and I are going to have our own Blue Force team, which will allow us to run our own devices, but be able to see what you're adding or what I'm adding to that single map, which is really going to be critical moving forward this hunting season.
That's right. So if you're looking for a mapping software to try out this year, or maybe you're just like not getting what you need out of the one you're using currently, Bill's offered us a promo code of HUNTR20, HUNTR20, that you guys can use to get your own subscription up and rolling. Check out Spartan Forge, download the app, use that promo code, and we'll be using that this year.
Make sure you check out Spartan Forge. So I'm just looking, because the more we think about it, and I'm not trying to harp on it, but I 100% believe, much like things like drones and cell cameras and whatever else, this fence discussion is moving fast, and the states haven't even caught up to it to regulate it. So I just looked in a couple states. Pennsylvania, yes, you can use a high fence to keep deer on or off your property in the state of Pennsylvania. Just check with local authorities to ensure that there's any kind of zoning. Corner lots may have a regulation of a maximum height. However, most will be allowed to do 7 to 8 foot high fence, as long as it doesn't conflict with zoning regulations. Illinois was the same thing. Illinois, basically, Chicago, Naperville, Wheaton, Champaign, and Bureau counties have regulations on it, but everybody else is pretty wide open on building a 6 to 8 foot fence for the purposes of seclusion or protection to keep deer on or off property. So,
and does it go further to say, I mean, there's a big difference between one side and 4 sides?
I was just looking at sides of property there.
Like one side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting enough, I don't see a ton on that in Illinois, at least. I mean, there is some fencing regulations. I would assume that there's something around like keeping the deer in and out. I haven't dug that
Well, it's
deep.
interesting because, like, I've heard you say in the past, like, high fence privatized populations are managed by like a different agency altogether.
Yeah, most of them are managed by the Department of Agriculture because they become livestock at that point.
So I mean, in my opinion, at a certain point, like you're jumping organizations. It's like
you are.
So the fence is here. It's you that's your set of rules. The fence is here. It's like the USDA or whatever.
Yeah. So and I'll speak to the two that I know. In Pennsylvania, the moment you high fence in, and I don't know if you have to keep those deer out and import deer in, I don't know. But the moment you have a high fence deer population, it's a Department of Agricultural managed situation. In Mississippi, like I said, you can't bring in those external genetics. So the moment you fence that in, you're still managed by the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks.
Okay.
So there is no jump in that case. And I think that's because of the genetic and farming side of things, right? Deer farming aspect of things.
Yeah.
I don't know about Illinois or Missouri and these other guys, but yeah, it's just an interesting discussion to have because
it is.
I do think that it's happening now. It's not that I think. We know it's happening now. We've seen them. Which is why this discussion is coming up a little bit, guys. Is like we've seen this happening on properties, and it's like, whoa, that's an extreme measure. What's the end goal here? It's to grow those deer. Well, like it's not going to be as cool though, right? Like, no. So and maybe to your point, it is going to have to be a state regulation that steps in and say, whoa. If you're going to do 1, 2, 3 sides of this thing and not call it a complete high fence, you're completely impeding the movement of all wildlife, not just deer, which is a public resource. And we're going to put a regulation on that. Probably will be necessary in a lot of these states. But yeah, I
don't want it to get to that point. What I'm saying is like, I don't think anybody wants to put up a fence. I think that they're doing it out of like, it's a last resort to want to be able to, whether it's right or wrong and whether it's as cool or not. I mean, we had that discussion, but like, I think they're getting to the point where they feel like there's no other option. Like, what else can I do? You know what I mean? And so my appeal would be more to these other states, and it should be from, I mean, I don't think they communicate on that level, but like if I'm Iowa or if I'm Kansas or I'm wherever you can go to still kill giant bucks, I'm going to these other states saying like, guys, what are you doing? Like because your regulations are sucking, it's pushing everybody to ours. You know what I mean? Why don't we work something out so we have like a better situation for everybody? Here's what's working for us.
Because all the other states are opportunity states. That's all they care about. Opportunity. They don't care about quality. I mean, even in the case...
Yeah, but the public obviously does. That's why they're all going there. So why don't we meet the demand? You know what I mean? You don't have to terminate...
Because I think if you poll the public, it will not be the majority. It'll be very much, whether you believe it or not, it'll be very much like a Missouri where 2/3 of the hunters are gun hunters, so they don't want to move that season. I don't know if that's a factual
that's
number
where
or
I'm
not.
saying you need an adult in a room. And I'm not saying it's like the government, but if you pull that same group of people, they want to shoot a big buck, whether they will admit it or not.
Sure. Everybody does. Everybody's sitting in a tree stand on the ground with a gun, with a rifle, with a crossbow, whatever. Dreams of walking over the hillside to them.
You can have both. I really think you can. Like, I'm not telling anybody to shoot a certain deer or not. I just think that it's become too easy because of the technology. It's like we're more able to target young potential bucks than ever before. And because, we want to shoot big bucks, we're choosing to do that.
Boy, it's so weird. And obviously it's my home state, so I don't want anybody to think I'm spot burning us, but like Pennsylvania has done some serious shit correct here recently. I mean, just like I'm on a lot of these forums, I get a lot of messages from local guys. We're killing slammers in this state. I mean, I've seen, I don't know, over 50 or 60 bucks that would be 160 plus killed in this state just from like random interactions or forums or people sending it to me.
It's majority private.
There's
majority, right?
Yeah, but we have a ton of public that's really good too.
Down south or all north?
Mostly north. Yeah, although I've seen a few in the south, like in my tier. In fact, somebody the other day was, I think, really close to where I hunt on the mountain. I don't know exactly. And he killed probably a low 160s 13 point with a bunch of kickers. Just freaking giant. And honestly, I think the deer was maybe 3 years old based on the pictures he sent us. Which, again,
who is this?
This guy sent me some pictures from Facebook. So, like, and I'm looking at, I guess I'm sorry, not to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
I'm just trying to think about, like, our state. we can use cell cameras, although it's a gray law. We can use them. No baiting, except for in the southeast part of the state where they have CWD and population control and shit like that.
Yeah. $1 state.
$1 state.
No barrier to entry for non-residents.
Short gun season post-rut, right? In December, late November, December. Archery season, fairly long, but not that long. We end November 22nd, which is, if you're listening to this, tomorrow.
Yep.
We end tomorrow, and we do not come back in until the day after Christmas for archery, and it's only like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. From a regulation standpoint, a lot of it is done right. I think the main thing going against Pennsylvania's ability to grow big deer is parcel size.
Yep, I agree.
It's just, and that's just the nature of it.
Probably soil quality.
Soil quality, sure. And vehicle traffic, just
we hit more deer than anybody in the states.
Yeah, urbanization. So I mean, from a regulation standpoint, I think it's pretty on point.
And an antler restriction, which in the long haul, I'm usually not for because it high grades, right? It kills all of those 1-year-olds that are 7, 8, 9, 10 points, superior genetic type deer.
Well, it's interesting because like there are pockets that still suck.
Sure.
Like for whatever reason, the hunting pressure is too great. Like where my uncle lives, like outside of Meadville, for instance, he'll, if he picks up a 3-year-old in the season, it's a really good season. On camera, type of a deal.
He's
also not covering thousands of acres. Well, but here's what I was gonna say. Here's the double-edged sword of what's happened in Pennsylvania. We've also lost more hunters than
300,000
most states. So
in the last 20 years.
A lot of those mature or bigger animals that are coming out of it are off of properties that used to be freely hunted by all the neighborhoods that have been posted.
Yep. And even in the public, when you talk about the big woods up north, the deer camps have dissipated greatly because of an aging population. Most of the people who live closer to the cities are like, I got more deer down here than I have up there.
Yeah, and it's more of a challenge.
It's vast, vast, nasty terrain. Like it's hard. There's giants up there. But if you're going there to kill the first legal buck, very hard. Much easier to do in some of your other places.
Colton shot one up there the other day.
Did he?
Yeah.
Attaboy.
He shoots good deer.
Attaboy, Colton.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of really good ones coming out from up there.
Or my buddy Dalton shot one around
Dalton
here.
Saw that? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird situation when you get into that style of things because, historically our state sucks. Yeah. Hammer.
It's one buck that he knew. Yeah. Old buck.
Yep. That's awesome. That boy Colton toasted him.
Yep.
Yeah, so historically we're a state that sucks, so people would flee our state to go to.
That's my old Sitka.
Is it?
Yeah.
People would flee our state to go to Ohio. That was what was happening, and I still think we do.
Yep.
But to your point, if we made a couple tweaks, and I don't know what they are, I'm just speaking out loud.
In Ohio?
No, in Pennsylvania.
I was gonna say I do.
If we made a couple tweaks in Pennsylvania, I bet you wouldn't have nearly as many people go to Ohio, and one of those tweaks in Pennsylvania would be Sunday hunting. The reason that people go to West Virginia and go to Ohio
what are we doing?
is because we can't hunt Sundays.
Idiots.
I do think, and I hopefully I'm not wrong, I do think that next year we will have Sunday hunting throughout the season in Pennsylvania. I think we're on the verge. I think it's there. It's gone through the legislature like it should. But if that single change will immediately remove a lot of people from West Virginia non-resident and a lot of people from Ohio non-resident because they'll be able to hunt the full weekend here.
Do you think it'll, conversely, or whatever the word is there, do you think it will hurt the quality in Pennsylvania?
No, not at all. No, I don't think so. In fact, I think it will potentially continue this slow uphill progression of better because they'll have more time.
Yeah.
They'll be able to pass that 3-year-old on Saturday because they're like, boy, I got one more sit and tomorrow's really good and I want to kill that 5-year-old on the mountain.
That's a great idea. You just think of that. Sunday hunting. Amazing.
Yeah. Is that a thing?
Innovative.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. Is Pennsylvania the only state you can't hunt Sundays?
No. Delaware maybe, and Vermont. I think Dustin DeTilio was telling me I think Vermont has it too.
Wow. Dumb.
There's a couple. But that would immediately release a lot of non-resident pressure from Ohio and West Virginia. And West Virginia is West Virginia. There's still some big bucks in the bow hunting
only.
What
are we doing? No hunting on Sundays?
That's crazy. It's an 1800s blue law.
It makes no sense at all.
When the blue laws were in place in the 1800s,
what does that mean?
There were a lot. It was kind of like, no, baby. No, in fact, back in the 1800s, it was flipped.
Sundays, make it Sundays.
Yeah. It was around the religious side of things.
Okay.
Right. So hunting.
Okay.
No alcohol sales.
Okay.
On Sundays.
Yeah, that was the thing. And for all you out of non-Pennsylvanians, we dealt with that for a long time.
No alcohol sales on Sundays.
We're going to buy beer on a Sunday.
Yeah. And so those were the real big ones. As crazy as it sounds, the alcohol sales thing was
very recent.
Reversed. Yeah. Like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. I can remember not all that long ago, like I would go into beer stores or gas stations out of state, and I'm like, they have like booze in here. Like,
yeah,
this is weird.
Yeah, and you could buy it on Sunday.
Yeah, now they all have beer caves in every Sheetz.
Yeah, and so it's crazy that the alcohol thing has been overturned, but the hunting thing still remains. Now, I don't think it was the religious side that was opposing that. The last holdouts on the Sunday hunting was the ag people, farmers.
Why would they not want hunting Sundays?
They just they didn't want to be bothered on a Sunday. That was their time to rest and hang out with the family. They didn't want people out on their property and all that thing.
Guess what? You can still tell people not to hunt on your property on Sundays. From
what I've heard is that last like farm bureau type guy they have stepped out of the way and said, go for it. Just get it done.
Yeah.
So I think it will come. But that will absolutely have an effect on the state of Ohio, because I think there are a lot of non-residents from Pennsylvania bringing corn over on a Sunday to hunt, and they're pressured. They've got a small window to kill and get home. Mm-hmm. Especially the eastern part of the state.
That's definitely happening. Yeah, for sure.
So, anyways, not to rant on
that.
Good
call.
But those are the small, to your point, I think those are the small state regulation changes that
doesn't take much.
That will help get to this.
Yeah.
As crazy as it seems, people.
What do you think of the antler restriction in Pennsylvania? Do you think it still makes sense to keep it in place? Like, I feel like we got it, and now. So I mentioned my uncle. We're up around that Meadville area. It's like those 3-year-olds that make it, they're 6 points.
Yeah, because they've high graded.
It seems very much so that they've high graded it.
Mm-hmm.
There's some good. Don't get me wrong. There's great deer that come out of anywhere, but
yeah, it's a tricky question because I would say yes. Yeah. I think we're past it. I know there are a pile of guys who will shoot the first spike that comes by.
Okay.
When they get the chance, but if they would have killed the first 6, 7, or 8 point yearling that came by, I'd rather them kill the spike potentially. Of course, we haven't. It could be birth date. There's a lot of factors, but assuming like it's not birth date and it's
so
genetics,
you think it's still getting deer to 2 years old?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. It absolutely is. It killing some of the best quality 1-year-olds? No doubt, but it is getting a large portion of them to 2. I mean, the thing is I don't know if we'll ever be to a point where we could remove it and continue down a healthy pathway because of the number of hunters we have.
Yeah.
I think we're in a place in Pennsylvania that 20 years ago, I would have never thought I would see in this state, which is, I mean, a lot of 4 or 5. I mean, I've got 3 or 4 bucks on the mountain that would be 145 to 155, mature deer, public land, mountain deer, ain't a farm field around.
If you were to get crazy, like if you were just to say, okay, antler restrictions is a flawed metric, you know what I mean? It's like the idea is they're like, how do we get deer to a certain age? So age class is obviously the objective.
I know exactly what it would be, and it would be incredibly difficult. It would be inside spread or main beam length.
It would.
Yep, we did it in Mississippi.
Okay.
We had places that it was. Let me think. Got to dig back in my brain. 10-inch inside spread or 13-inch main beam. And in the better quality soils, we had 12-inch inside spread or 15-inch main beam. So if it was a tight, 5-year-old buck, his beams are going to be longer than 15, right?
It's still a flawed metric, though.
Yeah.
Because it's not anything that's not age itself, which is a very tough thing. That's why that is not the metric.
Sure.
It's going to have potential for outliers. I agree. It's probably better.
It's way better than points.
Yeah.
Because you're going to protect those basket rack 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 point type deer.
Yeah.
So what that does is it effectively protects all of the 1-year-olds.
Yeah.
And even, some of the tighter 2-year-old type deer. The problem is even for me, I remember hunting in Mississippi. I'm like, I basically threw main beam out the window. Like that was one of the hardest things. Yeah, it was how wide he is, because I was killing 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds on public land. Obviously, if I saw a deer like one of these, no brainer, right? But it was basically look at me to the ears, I'll kill him. But that was it. Like other than that, like I was afraid to pull the trigger or release an arrow. which saved a lot of deer. Dude, I couldn't tell you the number of deer
that's the point.
that we passed because I was like, too late.
Yeah, I guess that probably would be it. I can't think of another metric that would be an indication of age other than everything we know about, looking.
Yeah, and again, points are just very clear cut, like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, it's a hard
a lot of
variable.
ground checking with the beams and spread thing. It's like, I think he's 12 inches wide, and he's like 11. HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Pure Wildlife Blends.
Yeah, buddy. We're doing a lot of food plots this year. It seems like the planning, the preparation, like the coordinating for getting everything, in the ground, is like it just never ends.
Yeah, and I just got off an 18-hour bender where I'm on multiple farms getting everything ready. But this year, fortunately, we've got Pure Wildlife Blends, which is Jeff Sturgis. Who better to partner with for our food plot program than a guy who's got 30 years of experience, been on thousands of farms. I mean, the guy lives and breathes food plots.
Yeah, and so the blends themselves are all handpicked by Jeff, and it's like, man, we've had a lot of conversations with him over the years, and he's been pretty influential in how we set up farms and stuff. And frankly, the product, it's in the name. It's Pure Wildlife Blend. So a lot of these other seeds that you see that are blue and orange and all these things, it's because they're coated with lime and they're dyed, and it's marketing at the end of the day. So we have a lot of confidence in the seeds that Jeff has chose, and that's what we're going to be planting this year. And so right now, you can use code HUNTR10 for 10% off anything on the website.
So if you're looking for switch, clover, brassica, or Jeff's favorite, layer in the rye. Yep. Check out purewildlifeblends.com.
You know what is funny is if you, and just so we're clear, like the antler restriction is the state of Pennsylvania's acknowledgement that we're all too dumb to age deer on the hoof. That's that's what it is.
Yes, absolutely.
And they're not wrong, right?
They're not wrong.
Because it would be funny if, like, just like in another world, they said, okay, 2 years old or older. What the percentage of, if they said, okay,
be a lot of dead 1-year-olds.
No antler restrictions this year. They just have to be 2 years old or older.
A lot of dead 1-year-olds.
I wonder what the percentage would be. Like how off we would be on that.
I bet
the whole state.
I bet of the deer that are killed, north of 40% would be 1-year-olds.
I agree.
Yep.
A lot of them.
Yep. Which is better than the old days of 90% were 1-year-olds.
I guess it depends on the consequence, right? I mean, you have the whole law enforcement thing, and like, that dynamic.
My only fear with that, and it's still a fear with any antler restriction, and I've come across, not a ton anymore, but when it first happened, I found, I think it was either the second or third year of antler point restrictions, I found about 7 or 8 dead bucks in the first 3 days that people walked up and said, shit, 3.
Yeah.
Walked away.
Yeah.
Didn't even take it out. And I would rather you take it out and consume the deer than leave it to waste.
That's true.
So that is, and I don't think we're there anymore. I think we've been doing it long enough. But initially, that was the biggest thing, is like people would ground check them, and it was like, I remember putting on drives and just finding dead 3 points and 4 points and 5 points all over the place, because at that point it was a 4-point to a side roll. So yeah, I mean, it has its places for it. People will say, well, like Iowa and Kansas and Ohio, none of these guys have ever had it, and look at these deer. It's just a different
It's a
hunting
hunter number
community.
thing.
Yeah, it's a hunter number thing. Missouri has it on public. Well, Missouri has it in most of the state. They started to take it away because of CWD, though.
What's the second high? I mean, I did Texas is way up there. What about the dense states, though? Is that Michigan?
Wisconsin.
Do those guys have antler restrictions? Do you know?
I believe they do have some point restrictions. I don't know if it's everywhere.
The same as ours, like similar.
Yep.
3 high or 8, whatever.
They might have beam and spread restrictions up there.
Interesting.
And again, I don't know if it's I know that Michigan has antler point restrictions in 17 or 18 counties probably. And that's been a big point of discussion about, like, should it go statewide? And the guys in the antler point restriction areas are like, we're seeing way bigger bucks. But again, it's that change. And there's a lot of hunters who are like, no, I don't want you to tell me what I can and can't shoot.
And I get it. I don't want to like impose anything that guys are like on edge in the woods. Like, that's not fun. You don't want to feel like, oh, am I going to shoot the wrong thing? Am I going to, I mean, so it's a happy balance of you want to
no
keep
APRs in Wisconsin.
Keep it fun for everybody, but also.
Yeah, no antler point restrictions in Wisconsin. So I take that back. Michigan, some places do. Missouri, some places do. Pennsylvania, statewide, does. I'm sure there's some other places. I was gonna say the bow hunting onlys in West Virginia don't.
Yeah.
It's just bow hunting only.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an interesting discussion when you get in. And again, the grand scheme of things, and it's hard because people who are like us and just love this and eat it up and think about it all the time, they understand where we're coming from. The guys who are hunting just to kill a buck and stuff are going to have a tough time processing this conversation because they're going to think that we're just trying to choke them out, that we don't want them to be successful, that we're taking away their corn piles, we're taking away their cameras, we're taking away their crossbows, we're taking away, that's not what it is. What we have to all realize here is that we want to find a common balance to where if you want to go out and shoot the first legal buck you see, do it.
Do it.
And I'm awesome. Go do it. At the same time, I want to kill a mature deer. Mm-hmm. And so I want you to say, great, go do it. They have to be there. Mm-hmm. And so we just have to figure out what that fine balance is. Honestly, both of us, shame on both of us, we should be killing more does. Mm-hmm. Not us, but both of those groups. The guy who wants to just kill a buck and the guy who wants to kill a mature deer. Mm-hmm. We both suck at killing does.
Well, again, it's like it's not everywhere though. So it's like
what do you mean it's not everywhere?
Like there are places that I don't think need more doe shot, and there are places that need more doe shot.
Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah,
and it's tough. That's probably as tough, if not tougher, as aging bucks on the hoof. You know what I mean? It's a thing that people are like, okay.
Well, I think we figured it out. It's a dedicated doe season with no overlapping buck season, probably post.
No, not how to kill them. How many do we kill?
Oh, well, see, unfortunately, that's not a great thing for the states to manage because it's so property specific.
Agreed, but it's also one that nobody seems to have the right answer for.
Yeah, I mean, Pennsylvania has basically just continued to allocate more and more tags, and that's not killing more does.
Well, again, you're talking about how to kill them. I'm talking about should we kill more or not.
Well, they think we should kill more. They're allocating more tags.
Clearly.
But it's not killing more deer.
Sure. And we understand why.
Yep. So that, and I would look at...
So I wonder why the state feels that way.
Why they feel like we need to kill more? Mm-hmm. Purely from a habitat forest regeneration mindset.
Okay.
Or deer vehicle collisions.
Okay.
Those would be the factors.
Valid reasons.
Those are the factors.
Okay.
I'd like to think hunter input to a point, but doubtful.
It's kind of, well, I mean, so when we had Tonk from Ohio on, I mean, that was his. It was basically from surveys from
which
farmers,
I think is way better.
Farmers and from hunters, and both parties it basically sounded like, yeah, we have too many deer. And I would agree, like anecdotally on my property, I would say, yeah, I think we need to shoot more does. I just think, just looking at it, and I'm like, based, how many I've seen, and truthfully, from a hunting experience, I'm like, okay, I'm struggling to access stands because they're in every ditch. So we need to shoot.
Let's talk about this a little bit because I'm. Obviously, you're listening to this past, but this weekend, I'm taking my dad and 2 kids down to Ohio. We're going to go to the farm. I haven't been there since I killed my buck October 4th, so I haven't checked cameras. I don't know. Obviously, we had a massive drought, so most of my food plots failed. The rye's
probably popping now.
Yeah, but I think there's too many deer on that farm, right? Especially post-timber cut. Mm-hmm. Boy, I don't see does when I'm hunting, which is what's weird. Like, I see a pile of bucks. I'll see 10 or 12 bucks in a sitting. Obviously, a lot of 1 and 2 year olds. Obviously. Yeah, that's great. But I don't see a lot of does. Like, and maybe because it's, big woods and small plots. Like,
You get pictures of them?
Well, I haven't checked here recently. But no, it's not like I see 10 does in a food plot or something.
So why do you think you have too many deer?
Because I can't establish a food plot. They mow it to the ground. I mean, those 3.5 acres of beans were fenced. Obviously, they knocked the fence down and they mowed them, like to the ground stubble.
But you can't confirm, or you don't think that it's more...
Can you confirm or deny?
That it's more bucks than does? Like, do you have any grasp...
or deny.
do you have any grasp on your ratio at all?
Not really.
Okay.
I would assume, based on trail camera pictures, I have more bucks than does. But
which
that
is interesting.
Seems so rare. Like, super rare.
Well, which is desirable, though. So, I mean, I don't think your answer is shoot more deer. I think your answer is get more food. Get more habitat.
Hard to do in big woods, right?
Spend more money.
Yeah. But
work harder.
Yeah, but I mean, even from an opening standpoint, like, I just don't have that many flat places to put more food in. Like, I did timber.
You got to feed them.
Oh,
the feed program.
That's freaking expensive.
And I guess at some point, just shoot more of them,
Well, so, and here's the other side. My neighbors have more pasture ground, woods too, but more pasture ground. they say that they see 15 to 20 plus does in their fields every night.
I'm sure there's a pile of does. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it's weird because like when I take the kids there, I'm thinking about it on Saturday. Like obviously Harlan's like, I want to kill a buck. And I'm like, dude, what if we just start shooting does when
you need
they
a
come
drone
out?
survey is what you need.
Which I have a thermal drone.
Yeah. So survey it.
Yep. I thought I should have did a camera survey this summer too, and I didn't. But yeah, that's
what I would do. I would look at how many I would throw a drone up, and I would say, okay, here's how many deer I have in October, and make an assessment about make an assessment. You ever see that? Did you ever see that? What is that? Make an assessment. Do you like me?
Yeah. Do you like me? Make an assessment.
Make an assessment. I'm old Greg. That's what it was. Make an assessment. I think you need to make an assessment about how many deer are on the property. Calculating what time of year it is, and based on the fact that you have food and stuff. I agree. A feed program is expensive. I haven't done it.
I assume if I put a giant corn pile out from the whole month of December and January, I could just pile those up.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's what we do.
Because that's what's hard right now. Is it's like I just and again I haven't checked cameras. I haven't been there, but I haven't. It's just usually like the last couple of years, I don't see does when I'm hunting. It's not that I'm necessarily opposed to shooting them. My buck tag's filled. Like if I'm going to hunt, I'm going to kill does. Mm-hmm. But it's just, I don't see them.
Well, you can only shoot, 2 more does in that county. Yeah.
Yep. And then Harlan and Carter and my dad can shoot 2 each.
Mm-hmm.
So
is it a 3 deer county or
3 deer county?
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I'm just going to kind of let them rip. Like, there's a couple holdout deer. I'm like, you can't kill these deer, dude. Mm-hmm. But other than that
deer?
Yeah. Well, Big Jared's going to just let them rip. I'll let him rip. Yeah, put the SIG on the tree, let it rip. Yeah, I'll let it. He'll ask, and I'll show him a picture of this giant 3-year-old. It's funny. So he's probably listening to this. So Trad Geeks, Kev, is going to go hunt that farm next week when this is airing, probably. Cool. He was
Finn going with him, or he's just going?
He's just going. I was like, boy, Finn's probably, he's like, he's been letting me hear it already. He's
like,
you're hunting Jeremy's farm? He's like, funny. Yeah. He's like,
well, Finn killed a freaking awesome deer in Missouri, right?
No, Pennsylvania.
Didn't kill one in Missouri?
I don't think so.
Oh, maybe I was wrong.
I think he had one close and didn't get a shot. Maybe he did kill one in Missouri. I don't remember.
What a stud.
Yeah. And but anyways, it's like, and I've sent him some pictures. Like there's plenty of a mature deer to kill on that farm. But yeah, it's kind of a weird thing because I need to kill some does off there. I think there are too many deer on that property per the food that I have available.
Yeah. I don't think you can go wrong. I mean, if it seems like you have way too many deer, odds. I
mean, how many does are you really going to kill? Like,
no. Yeah. Odds are, 2/3 of them are does. Odds are,
would think so.
At the very least, I would think 50-50.
Half. Yep.
So if you go and kill 5 to 10 does even, you know what I mean?
That's probably not
just
even
see what
making a
happens.
Dent.
Fine.
It's probably not even making a dent. Yeah. Yep. So that'll be it. We're just going to, hopefully when we're airing this podcast.
To that point, we shot...
You shot 15,
I
right?
didn't feel like it was crazy out of whack, but I was like, we have a lot of deer, so I'm going to shoot doe. We shot 15 does last year.
And not that much effort.
No. We just went and dumped a bunch of corn piles, and then we had a bunch of guys, and everybody shot does.
Yeah, so I think that's if there is a benefit of corn piles, it's that late season killing does for sure.
You whack
them and stack them.
Yeah, and to the guys that say you can't kill bucks off of them, there was
plenty
of bucks seen on those corn piles that we asked everybody not to shoot
in the late season, especially. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. But anyways, that's what I thought it was, because there's a lot of people I bet listening to this are like, I don't know how many deer. That's the number one question that Grant Wood said he got is like, how many does do I kill?
Yeah, guess what? We don't know. I don't know. Yeah. We don't know. It's just kind of like a year-to-year thing. Like, if it seems like it's not like we're going out and shooting a bunch of bucks to reduce deer numbers. It's like if we feel like there's too many deer, we'll go out and take a healthy number of does if we can.
I've always said it's at least 2 does to 1 buck. Like if you shoot a buck on the property, you should probably kill 2 does.
To counteract the fact that just in nature, there's probably 2 does for every buck.
Normally.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, I think it's just the way that those doe groups are at in those big woods. They just aren't as mobile, and those bucks are just more visual, and they're uniquely identified. You're like, that's that buck. That's that buck. Big doe comes by, you're like...
Am I wrong about the fact that... I did it again there. I found the answer before I asked it, but I think the answer is yes. Bucks are naturally, their mortality rate is higher, correct, than does.
Yes.
Yeah, just because of the rut, frankly. They're fighting with each other.
They have more natural mortality and believe it or not, like they're more susceptible to CWD for whatever reason. I don't know. So,
Are they?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yep.
I know the age class has something to do with it, but also the...
Yep, sex. Yep, more bucks test positive than does.
Cool. Not cool, but got it.
So yeah, I mean it's a unique thing to get into there, but yeah, and also this time, right? We're dropping. I forget what we said. Is this next Thursday? No.
When is this gonna air?
When is this gonna air?
I gotta show you that clip.
It's
whatever.
Yeah, but it's we're at that time frame where we're tailing out of the rut.
21st, 22nd,
yeah,
like
tailing out of the rut. Yeah, 21st. Tailing out of the rut to these kind of bucks are going to be working for those last does. They're going to get real visible here at this point.
I'm gonna shoot another one in Illinois.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
At the same time,
You think so?
They're getting hungry. Yeah,
I'd take that deal.
take that deal.
Shoot that buck?
Shoot that buck.
I'd shoot that buck.
Yeah, there's
Damn good buck.
there's 4 shooters now on that property.
I think... I mean, I'm obviously going to target Crazy Horse. I'm not saying I wouldn't shoot the other ones. I would shoot that 8-point.
You'd shoot that 11.
I think so. We need some more pictures of them.
I got a great picture from him earlier in the year that's like, boy, that's bigger than I thought.
I'd like to get some more pictures of them. At a certain point in the season, I started feeling like, as anybody does, I'm like, I mean...
He's going to make it. What are you, Lee Lukoski? Get out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to make it until I put one through him.
Yeah, I'd really like to see him at 8 years old,
Yeah. We have one 8-year-old on the property, and now we're Lee Lukoski.
Well, that's the one to target,
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's
because there's something appealing about, like, the fact that he probably won't get any bigger. Like, I think Crazy Horse is as old as...
In fact, he had a really messed up side. That's why I called him Crazy Horse last year.
Yeah.
He looked like a horse, but he had a really messed up side, and he completely cleaned out to a mainframe 11 this year.
And we were going to shoot him last year. I saw him the day that I killed my buck.
He daylighted a lot. He's not daylighted like at all.
I think that's all that we want. I mean, at a certain point, the evolution that I'm at in deer hunting and like herd and in management, and we see a lot of this in those Iowa guys and whatever, is that it's not like you whatever ideas you have about that. It's just like I just want to see these deer reach their maximum potential.
Mm-hmm.
It's out of
not all of them are ever going to do it.
It's out
we
of
know that.
Like love for the animal and passion for what they are. Like I think it's so cool. And that, like, if I have a distaste for shooting young deer, it's not because I don't want guys to like shoot the biggest deer of their life. I think that's awesome. You can be happy and what's the word, torn about something at the same time. I just want to see them reach their fullest potential because I think they're super cool and it's amazing what they can do. So I mean, that's the idea. So whether a deer is 5 years old and doesn't have potential to score, based on the likelihood that deer will die or whatever, I'm like, I can call that deer that I would chase.
Yep.
And on the other hand, I'm like, if a deer has reached maximum age and we feel like we've seen their best rack, then that's what we're after, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting spot there because it's, again, not to go state by state, but like, you have to be in check with what the reality is in your area. Like if you're in Pennsylvania, you're probably you're rarely going to see a freaking 5-year-old. Just, there aren't many of them. Yeah. There's more than there used to be, but there aren't many of them. As you flip the script, you go to Iowa and Kansas, there's a lot of 5+s out there. A lot. Not all of them are giants, but there's a lot of older deer out there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you just have to understand what that is. At the same time, and we've kind of had this discussion a little bit, is like I really don't want, whether it's young and or new bow hunters, I don't really want them passing like 140-inch 3-year-olds and stuff because they feel like they have to kill
from a general public
deer.
standpoint. I'm not asking anybody to pass anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should shoot whatever you want to shoot. Mm-hmm. To my neighbors, it's a different conversation, and I'm not telling them again. It would be I would appeal to them to say, hey, we have the ability. If you guys are interested, let's work together on this.
Yeah.
But on this podcast and to the general public of hunters, I'm not telling anybody to pass anything. Shoot whatever you want to shoot. In the same breath, I think that the state has a responsibility to manage the resource for all stakeholders, including us.
Agree.
So I would advocate for that.
I agree. Yeah, and that is the tough part, and it's
I think it's pretty fair.
The hard part is we have to. The state has to, and Iowa did it. The state has to. Pennsylvania did to a point, which is surprising. We have to get to the point where this is no longer purely a opportunity based system. We need opportunity, right? And frankly, that's why I'm not opposed to recruiting new hunters, but I'm hesitant to recruit new hunters because we don't have anywhere to put them. Thus, the opportunity is
right
shitty.
now. That needs to stop. With what's in place right now, we can't recruit new hunters. You're losing hunters out the bottom of the thing because the quality of experience and access is lacking.
Yeah.
So, frankly, it's a mismanagement of funds and of resources to continue to recruit hunters.
Yeah, there's just nowhere to put them,
and it's a shame because you have to, in a sense, like from a generational element, for the sport to continue, you do have to continue to recruit new hunters. But we need to fix our shit first.
Well, I mean, those people I think are in much better shape, like my kids, right? And I'm not saying just because I own land, but like I'll find a place to get them in to hunt. It's the guys who are like brand new, maybe not like having a family member mentor type thing they're going to be the ones that struggle the most.
Yeah.
They have no idea what they're getting into. They're listening to us try to talk them through like how to hunt and where to hunt. And it's like, the bottom line is there's not as many places as it seems. And the places that are available, which is public, paid by your tax dollar, are slammed, mega slammed. So there are still some gems out there for sure. There's plenty of guys killing good bucks on public land, but it's tough. It's a tough spot, especially if your expectations are to kill mature deer. If your expectations are to be a new hunter and say, well, I'm going out to bow hunt and kill mature deer, that's not a realistic expectation for most people. So, yeah, I think that is a big piece that we have to figure out. The leaking out the bottom minus like an age thing. Like I get it from like an aging out side of things that you're not going to be able to stop that. But the people who are capable hunters who are leaking out the bottom primarily because of access would be the biggest thing. That's a big fix that we got to hit.
Well, and I don't know if they're quitting as much as like there's frustration brewing. Like you're seeing,
I think a lot of people are quitting.
Some people are quitting, and it's like, people are just reaching a point there where they're like, we have to do something. Whether, some people put up a fence, some people quit hunting, some people, get on a podcast and rant about, whatever the outcome is, or you try to do anything you can to create opportunities for yourself and for your family. It's just abundantly clear now that there's a demand for a better hunting experience, and we have, the ability and the tools to at least have conversations about how to fix it.
Yep.
And the state's going to have to acknowledge it at some point.
Yeah, and that's tough because it's asking them, not all of them, but asking most of them to change their entire philosophy around deer management from opportunity of deer hunting to managing for quality of the experience, not just the herd.
Managing for a healthy herd. Like, just do the right thing is how I feel about it.
Well, I mean, you hear from some of these guys, they're, like some of the guys battling CWD are just like, you're going to have less deer and younger deer, but you'll have deer. That's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. Well, obviously we need to be putting resources into fixing these things. The disease side of things, like there needs to be research on that. And I don't know, that's a big variable too, I suppose. CWD doesn't seem to be, frankly, you don't hear any, at least right now. And I'm not saying that it couldn't be in the future, but like no deer managers that we're talking to are concerned about CWD right now. All of them are like, what do we do about EHD? The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Better Backstrap.
Well, one thing that's undeniable, man, is you and I both like to eat. And so we're going to be partnering with the Better Backstrap this year to have the best seasonings possible for our meat this summer.
Yeah. Well, dude, when it comes to venison, it's like you've heard me talk about before. It's like, what does the preparation for all this look like and stuff? And it's like, I really want to make a point of eating more venison moving forward. And some of the Better Backstrap mixtures have made it super easy.
Yeah. And so we've got kind of 3 core mixtures. You've got your original Better Backstrap, which is for that grilling of your backstrap or tenderloins or anything like that. You've got your classic taco mix.
Always can't go wrong with tacos.
Can't go wrong with that. And then you've got your standard SPG in the orange can.
Well, SPG and down the hatch.
There you go. So right now, if you go to betterbackstrap.com, you can use the code HUNTR15 to get 15% off any of your orders on the seasonings, and there'll probably be more coming out here throughout the year.
Get yourself a Better Backstrap.
Well, it's really interesting. Obviously the deer stuff is managed at the state level. There's really not a good national group representing deer hunters to like actually hear what hunters are talking about and like trying to go out and fight the good fight at the state level. Doesn't exist from a national side. Like there's obviously Iowa Sportsman's Club.
It's supposed to be like
Hunters
the NBA,
Advocate.
but they're
yeah, no, they're lobbying for things, but it's not. Yeah. no disrespect to those guys. That's not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at like, if I took a poll of like the people listening to this podcast and it's like, okay, where are you from? You're from Michigan. What do you think? Like, what's going on up there? And you're like, boy, man, we're losing hunters. We don't have good access. Which public, like, it's overhunted. It's like, okay, like we need to have that resolution. We need to talk. In fact, I know recently, and I think this is a good thing. Whatever their hunter sharing the harvest or whatever their hunter venison program is, got like a $500,000 grant to buy refrigerator trucks for like being able to house more does and to get that to needy families and stuff. Awesome, right? Probably very important. Is it the most important thing that the deer hunters of the state want to see? Probably not. And they're funding a lot of this. So I think that's where from a general public side, I think that there is a lack of attention from a organization standpoint to be able to help in these different places. I think that's majorly needed in there. I think organizationally state, like we know Hunters Advocate of Ohio, we know Taylor and Chris and Skip and these guys with the Iowa Sportsman's Club. Like I know that there are groups individually in states doing things. Michigan United Conservation Clubs in Michigan, like there are groups doing these things. From a national side, that is literally trying to take in and learn. Like we could talk to a Skip and understand what I was doing and say, okay, cool, let's go to Illinois and try to figure out how to that isn't happening. It doesn't exist. It needs to exist because I think especially we're lucky here. The next 4 years are not going to be as threatened as we thought.
You're talking about like a Congress of deer managers.
To a point.
Like a national gathering of herd managers.
But I want it to be I want it to be the voice of the public deer hunter. Like again, and I know that's very diverse of who those people are, but I want them to feel like they have a voice that can do things. And I know there's Sportsman's Alliance. People are going to name a ton of these things. I'm talking just purely from a deer hunter standpoint, understanding, being that voice, coming into the state, working with that state agency to understand why you're doing this, why we can't change this, delivering and communicating back to the sportsman. That's a complete miss for most of these agencies. I think it's needed, and it doesn't exist right now. And I think the state level is absolutely the first line of defense. Iowa Sportsman's Club, Hunters Advocate of Ohio, Michigan United Conservation. Those are the first lines of defense. Mm-hmm. This is somebody that's backing from a national side to have input, where you can use things like whether it's us, Bomar, Skip, all of our platforms as well. We've got monster platforms here to be able to help pull that voice through, right? Because at the end of the day, it needs votes. Yeah, it needs numbers. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a big miss, and I think that's something that seeing where deer hunting is going is going to be needed very, very soon. Yeah.
Well, and it hasn't been until probably recent years that we and states have started to realize that maybe they do impact one another. So, because for a long time, it's just like, well, this is Pennsylvania.
Stop
this is what we do here in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
But until you realize, well, okay, there's like a pretty healthy number of Pennsylvanians that are going to Ohio for this reason. Ohio should all of a sudden be like, oh, okay. So here, it's a lot. You know what I mean? It's and maybe not necessarily like they have a majority of the hunters, but like 70% of Ohio's license bill was footed by non-residents last year. It's like, okay, so there's a big number there. And whether it's for better or for worse, it's like it's a very real impact. So, I mean, I think something that acknowledges how these states impact each other, whether it's the regulations or budgets, anything like that. It's
a hard discussion to have because it's like, okay, cool. If we cut out the Pennsylvania hunters or most of them from Ohio, we're going to lose license revenue. However, we're likely going to concede a ton of access back to Ohioans. Yeah, Ohioans. Mm-hmm. You're going to concede a bunch of access back to them. That, to me, is the biggest threat to hunting is lack of access, not lack of license revenue.
Say that again.
So I believe that the lack of access is the biggest threat to hunting, not the lack of license revenue.
Yeah. Well, yeah, one leads to the other, I think.
In a way. So if I take away a chunk of Pennsylvanians, because they can hunt Sundays in Pennsylvania now, or soon to be, hopefully, and that relinquishes some property accesses or public access back to Ohioans.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I lose a little bit of revenue, but ultimately I might retain a lot more people that are resident-based hunters.
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it, especially in that Pennsylvania to Ohio dynamic. I firmly believe that, and I would leave corn piles off the table for this one. I think that cell cameras and crossbows are the biggest reason for loss of access, because of what we talked about earlier, in that it takes a demographic that of, let's say, 1 million people in Pennsylvania that hunted 2 times a year on average, to now 700,000 people hunting 10 plus times on average.
Yeah,
those people need places to go, and they can now justify leases, they can justify buying, all the above, and and that has been the biggest loss of access factors, in my opinion, nationwide.
Yep, I would agree. Massive. Yep, and the ability to monitor remotely.
Yeah, and I'm not blaming the crossbow hunters. Like it's legal. It's legal, and I'm saying
the state gave it to you.
That's right, they gave it to you, and I'm not saying that like. We've always advocated that people with disabilities and stuff should have
kids,
it shouldn't even be
seniors,
that hard.
Disabilities.
It shouldn't even be that hard. If you say I have a disability and hunt with great, here's your card. That's fine. But to make it the primary weapon choice, like in a season, I'm not saying it's wrong or it's bad or it's not even killing that many more deer. But it is the reason that people are losing places to hunt.
Yeah, what did we say? 70% of the archery harvest in Ohio was with crossbow last year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And those people probably hunted 5 to 10 times more than if there were no crossbows.
Yeah. That's just the reality. You know what I mean? It's one that maybe some people don't want to hear, but I'm not saying people shouldn't be able to hunt. Like, you have a choice. Either hunt the gun season with a gun, hunt the bow season with a bow, or if you'd like to hunt the archery season and you have a medical necessity to hunt with a crossbow, then great.
Get a disability card.
Who am I missing there?
The able-bodied guys who say, I don't have time to practice with the bow.
Yeah. So suck it up. And you know what I mean? It's hurting the state. It's hurting other hunters. All the states. Every state that's allowed that in. You know what I mean? It's in the short term, it's brought more money probably just from license sales and stuff. But in the long term, and right now we're really experiencing
made a lot of money to these crossbow manufacturers.
Degradation and access in every state.
Access is it. That is effectively a killer of deer
I've had
hunting.
that conversation with a lot of crossbow hunters, and all of them were like, I haven't thought about it that way. That's a great point. And because I'll start the conversation by saying, I have no problem with you hunting with a crossbow. Like, dude, it's legal means. Like, you should be doing it. I'm an idiot for not doing it. However,
it's easier.
However, here's the implication that I think that it's having, and they're like, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. So those are the things where something that's offset a little bit.
Not to pin this on all crossbow guys, but I did have a crossbow hunter steal a cell cam of mine the other day. Got a picture of him, freaking redhead. I can say that because my wife's a redhead.
Yeah.
Snagged my camera. I thought he just shut it off. I went out to check and it was gone.
I got that one on public land the other day.
Land.
Well, I got the one on the guy in the ghillie suit. Everybody got a good chuckle out of that. Got another guy who looked like he was packing his entire life on his back, had a hip quiver of like 35 arrow or bolts, and just crossbow over his shoulder walking through a bedding area.
That's funny.
Waiting to jump shoot one.
Holy mackerel. Look at that.
We got.
Don't say his name there. I don't know if he's released it.
That's not the food plot one though, right? That's the one he's been sitting for.
Yeah.
In the gap.
Permission.
In the tight giant.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because he's still got that food plot one he's going after, right?
Yep. Oh, that deer is large.
Large and in charge. I bet it's bigger than he thinks or thought.
I don't know. He was thinking, yeah, that deer is 200.
Yeah.
He's large.
That's large. That's a large one. That's a big one.
In the words of Nick Munt, who we'll have to have on here sooner than later, that is a large whitetail buck.
Whitetail.
I love that.
Yeah, so it's, good discussions to have at this point because we're in the midst of like gun seasons are happening. And I also say that from I really hope people are enjoying this part of the season. Like, gun seasons for me are kind of the camaraderie aspect of things. I mean, I grew up looking forward to deer camp the day after I left deer camp, for the next year. And that's faded for a lot of people. Obviously, I'm going to do this kind of mini deer camp. We just had one with Paul's family up in Illinois, which was awesome to hang out with those guys for 3 or 4 days and be in camp and hang with Brackett and Bobby Kendall and stop at Lee and Tiffany's house. Like
it's been a run, man.
We had the full. Jake let us stay at his lake house. Bomar comes and hangs out. Like we had a full run of like not a traditional camp of like we had one place, we were here, but we just kind of hit them all.
Yeah.
And so that's fun. That's a cool aspect because it really, in fact, people probably saw it live, Bobby shot that deer and came right to Brackett's house, of which then we set up and did.
We're like, where you at, dude? He's like, apparently 20 minutes away. I was like, come by.
We had food.
Eat some venison.
The food probably pulled him in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we did the longest hunt companion on record of like 2+ hours.
That's right.
Hunt companion. And but it was cool because Bobby had shot that deer. He was all by himself. He's 3 hours from his house or something. Mm-hmm. And he then got to have us with him on that. That was his experience in deer camp kind of thing. So yeah, it's a cool thing when you get to that camaraderie aspects. Don't take that lightly. That's the hardest part of having these conversations. It's like, boy, I don't really want to come off as sounding selfish when we say these things because the people that you surround yourself with is what makes these so great.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you just sat at home with it by yourself, yeah, it's awesome. It's giant buck, but it's like, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, nobody to share it with.
Nobody to share it with. So again, at the end of the day, even deer like this mega giant are not worth, ruining relationships over.
I feel like I should hold one side.
You should hold
the other.
Did we just touch tips? That's monster. For those of people looking at this deer, it is the, I won't say it's the first, but it's for sure the most recent that I can in memory say, boy, did I misjudge that son of a bitch on the hoof.
Oh, me too.
Way off.
Me too.
Way off.
I suppose this podcast will drop after. So last Friday we did put out a little film on this. We filmed both these times. So if you guys missed that, you can go back and watch it. I got this one on film. Jeremy got bits and pieces of his on that film, but we recap the whole thing there. So if you guys are interested in checking out, you can do that there on our channel. Yeah,
it should be a pretty cool Iowa recap there. We'll have an Illinois one coming up here soon, which was kind of slow. We were in a bit of a lockdown there, but we'll kind of discuss how that looked and what we experienced and saw. And then
we're not done there. I've got at least one more that's going to hit the ground. I think
you'll be in Illinois tomorrow probably for the gun season starting. You'll be bow hunting, but gun season.
Yep.
And being there for a few days, and then I'll probably go back first cold snap in December would be my guess.
Cool.
Hunt food and figure out what we got.
I'll have your blinds all built and
yeah, like that. That'd be nice. That'd be nice. Are those on the way?
Yes, they are.
I love that. Yeah, got a couple bail blinds rolling out there. Be fun. Cool. Well, anyways, we appreciate everyone listening to this episode with Jared and I, 220 HUNTR Podcast. Obviously, unbelievable experience in Iowa. Hopefully, a lot of deer season left ahead of us. Also, a great time just for camaraderie. Thanksgiving's coming up. We're going to stuff our faces with turkey, mashed taters, and stuffing. Gotta love that. And we just hope everybody has a successful rest of November here. Be safe. And we'll see you next time.
Later.
Take me